At my rehearsal dinner, in front of 150 guests, my fiancé stood up during the toasts and confessed he was in love with my cousin. When I confronted him afterward, he had the audacity to tell me I was overreacting and making this bigger than it needs to be. So I walked back into that ballroom, took the microphone, and reminded everyone of something he'd conveniently forgotten: I owned the venue. And then I cancelled everything. I'm Lana Winslet, and this is the story of how my entire future imploded at a rehearsal dinner in the event space I built from the ground up. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. And what I did when the man I was supposed to marry chose my cousin over me. But to understand how I ended up standing at that microphone, watching my fiancé's face drain of color as 150 people realized what I was about to do, you need to understand who I was before that moment. You need to understand the life I'd built on grit, vision, and the kind of determination that turns abandoned warehouses into something extraordinary. At 33, I was the owner and creative director of the Chronicle Building, a 12,000 square foot event venue in downtown Portland that I'd renovated myself over 3 years. Not oversaw the renovation, actually renovated. I'd spent weekends ripping out rotted floorboards, nights researching historic preservation grants, early mornings meeting with contractors who didn't take me seriously until I showed them I knew the difference between load-bearing walls and partition walls. The building had been a newspaper headquarters in the 1920s, abandoned for 40 years, condemned twice, and everyone told me I was insane for buying it. My business loan officer actually asked if I'd thought this through, like I was some impulsive kid instead of a woman with a degree in architecture and 5 years of project management experience at a commercial real estate firm. But I saw what it could be. Exposed brick walls. Original hardwood floors. Soaring ceilings with iron trusses. Massive industrial windows that flooded the space with natural light. I could see couples getting married under those trusses. Corporate events utilizing the open floor plan. Art installations against those brick walls. 3 years of 16-hour days proved me right. Chronicle became the most sought-after venue in Portland. I was booked solid 18 months in advance. Brides cried when they toured the space. My Instagram had 94,000 followers. Portland Monthly had featured me in their Women Changing the City issue. My world revolved around vision and execution. Mood boards and material samples. Client consultations and vendor negotiations. Transforming empty industrial space into whatever dream people were paying me to create. Every event was a blank canvas. Every wedding had its own color story, its own emotional arc, its own careful choreography from ceremony to last dance. Control wasn't just important, it was my brand. Lana Winslet didn't do chaos. She did meticulous planning, flawless execution, and spaces so beautiful they made people cry happy tears. That control extended to my personal life too. I meal prepped on Sundays. My closet was organized by color and season. I had a 5-year business plan that included opening a second location. Everything had its place, its timeline, its purpose. Which is probably why I completely missed the signs that my fiancé was falling in love with someone else. Because acknowledging that would have meant admitting I couldn't control everything. That some things fracture no matter how carefully you plan. For days before my rehearsal dinner disaster, I'd spent 11 hours coordinating a corporate gala at my venue. A tech company's 10th anniversary, 300 guests, 7-course dinner, custom lighting design that took my team 2 days to program. The CEO specifically requested me because, as he put it, Lana Winslet doesn't miss details. He was right. I didn't miss details in my work. But I'd missed approximately half a year of details in my personal life. Details like the way my fiancé's eyes lingered on my cousin Ophelia at family dinners. The way he volunteered to pick her up from the airport when she flew in from Chicago. The way his phone was suddenly always face down on tables. I missed those details because I was busy building something that mattered. Because I trusted the man I was going to marry. Because Ophelia was family, my favorite cousin, the person I'd asked to be my maid of honor. And because I'd trained myself to see what I wanted to see, a successful business, a beautiful venue, a perfect wedding, a future that made sense on my carefully organized timeline. That training made me blind to the catastrophe building right in front of me. While I was selecting napkin colors and approving menu tastings, they were constructing something else entirely. A betrayal so complete it would detonate my carefully controlled life in the middle of my own rehearsal dinner. In my own building. On my own property. Which, as it turned out, gave me more power than either of them had anticipated. I met Carlos Heathers 3.5 years ago at a vendor showcase for Portland wedding professionals. I was there scouting florists for my venue's preferred vendor list. He was there representing Heathers and Associates, his family's luxury car dealership that had started doing high-end wedding transportation. We were both standing at the coffee station when someone knocked over an entire air pot, sending coffee flooding across the table toward my portfolio of venue photos. Carlos grabbed a stack of napkins and started building a dam while I rescued my binder. "Crisis averted," he said, grinning at our makeshift napkin barrier. "Though I feel like we should exchange insurance information after that near disaster." I laughed despite myself. "I'm Lana. And that portfolio represented about 6 months of photography work, so thank you for your quick napkin engineering." Carlos. "And I have to ask, are those photos of the old Chronicle building?" He looked at my open binder with genuine interest. "I drive past that place every week." "Someone's actually renovating it?" "Someone is me. I bought it 2 years ago. Opening next spring." His eyebrows rose. "You bought that entire building? That's ambitious." Most people said ambitious like it was a polite word for reckless. But Carlos said it like it was a compliment. We talked for 40 minutes while the vendor showcase continued without us. He asked real questions about the renovation, not patronizing ones, but genuine questions about zoning challenges and historic preservation requirements. He told me about growing up in his family's dealership, the pressure of legacy businesses, the weird balance of honoring tradition while trying to innovate. "My father thinks wedding transportation is frivolous," Carlos admitted. "He thinks we should stick to luxury sales and corporate fleet management. But I see these couples on the biggest day of their lives, and the transportation actually matters. It's part of the experience, you know." I did know. That's exactly how I felt about venue space, that the environment shaped the entire emotional experience of an event. Before we left, Carlos handed me his card. "When Chronicle opens, I want Heathers and Associates on your vendor list. And," he hesitated, "maybe we could grab coffee sometime? Somewhere with more structurally sound air pots?" Our first date was at a cafe in the Pearl District. We talked for 3 hours about business, family expectations, and the specific kind of pressure that comes from building something with your name on it. Carlos understood what it meant to be consumed by work that felt like purpose. After years of dating men who resented my business, who complained that I worked weekends and took calls during dinners, who wanted me smaller and more available and less obsessed with old buildings, Carlos felt like relief. Like finally meeting someone who spoke my language. He never complained when I canceled dates for contractor emergencies. Never made me feel guilty for prioritizing my venue's opening. Never asked me to choose between him and my career. When I had to spend an entire weekend on site during a plumbing crisis, Carlos showed up with food and helped me clean up after the contractors left. When I was stressed about inspection deadlines, he'd just listen without trying to fix anything or tell me I was overreacting. His family money meant he understood luxury without being pretentious about it. The Heathers dealership had been in Portland for 40 years, old money by West Coast standards, the kind of established family that knew everyone and got invited to everything. His mother, Patricia Heathers, was less enthusiastic about me. I met her 8 months into our relationship at a formal dinner at their Dunthorpe estate. She looked at me across their antique dining table and said, "An event venue. How entrepreneurial." The pause before entrepreneurial said everything. I wasn't from an established family. My parents were middle class. My dad was a high school vice principal, my mom was a nurse. I'd bought my building with a massive loan and pure determination, not family money. "Mother," Carlos said, his voice carrying a warning. "I'm just saying you come from very different worlds," Patricia continued, smiling that smile that wasn't really a smile. Carlos's previous girlfriends came from more established backgrounds. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The Vanderbilts, the Washingtons. Families we've known for generations. Translation: You're not good enough for my son. Carlos apologized profusely afterward. She'll warm up once she sees how incredible you are. Once Chronicle is the premier venue in Portland, she'll understand. She never did warm up. But 2 years into our relationship, Carlos proposed anyway. We were at Cannon Beach, standing on the sand at sunset. He got down on one knee with his grandmother's ring, a platinum band with a 2-carat emerald-cut diamond that probably cost more than my first car, and asked me to marry him. I said yes without hesitation. Yes to a future I thought I understood. Yes to a man who seemed to accept all of me, including the parts that other people found difficult. The wedding was set for June 14th. We had 10 months to plan. Plenty of time for everything to fall into perfect place. That's when my cousin Ophelia moved back to Portland from Chicago. And that's when Carlos proposed, in October, 1 month after Ophelia arrived. The timing seemed romantic then. Looking back, I wonder if he was trying to prove something to himself. Or lock me down before he had time to reconsider. Ophelia Quinn had always been the kind of beautiful that made people stop mid-sentence. Long auburn hair, green eyes, the kind of effortless style that made everything look intentional even when it wasn't. We'd grown up together, her mom and my mom were sisters, and we'd been close our entire lives. Sleepaway camp together every summer. Shared college apartments. She was the first person I called when I bought my building. She'd moved to Chicago 5 years ago for a job in fashion PR, representing luxury brands and boutique designers. Her Instagram was a carefully curated aesthetic of rooftop parties and designer sample sales and the kind of lifestyle that looked expensive but, as Ophelia always reminded me, was mostly smoke and mirrors. When she called in August saying she was moving back to Portland, I was genuinely thrilled. The Chicago scene is exhausting, she'd said over FaceTime. I'm 31 and I'm tired of pretending I care about which influencer wore which emerging designer to which gallery opening. I want to come home. Maybe start my own consulting business. You can stay with me while you apartment hunt, I offered immediately. I have the guest room. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude on you and Carlos. Carlos is at his place most nights anyway. We're doing the traditional thing, not living together until after the wedding. His mother's idea. I rolled my eyes. Something about propriety and family expectations. Ophelia laughed. Of course Patricia Heathers has opinions about cohabitation. Does she also have opinions about which fork to use for fish? Multiple opinions. Extensively detailed. Ophelia moved into my guest room in September. I helped her unpack, gave her keys to my loft, told her to make herself at home. She immediately transformed the guest room into something that looked like a Pinterest board: plants, string lights, vintage scarves draped artistically over the mirror. I missed you, she said, hugging me tight. Chicago was lonely. I need my family. I introduced her to Carlos that weekend at a casual dinner. He was charming, asking about her Chicago experience, her plans for Portland, making jokes that actually landed. Ophelia laughed easily, touched his arm when making points, complimented his watch. I like him, she told me later that night. He seems really genuine. Not what I expected from someone with his background. What did you expect? I don't know. Some uptight rich guy? But he's actually cool. You lucked out. I smiled, feeling validated. Ophelia's approval mattered to me. Over the next 2 months, the three of us became a unit. Sunday brunches at my favorite cafe. Thursday dinners when I wasn't swamped with events. Weekend trips to wine country when my schedule allowed. Ophelia had opinions about everything wedding-related and inserted herself as my unofficial co-planner. Your invitations need better paper stock, she'd say, flipping through samples. This feels cheap. You want something with weight, with texture. The flowers are pretty but predictable, she'd comment at florist meetings. You need something unexpected. Something that makes a statement. Are you sure about that dress? She asked when I showed her photos of my top choice. It's beautiful, but is it you? It feels a little safe. I brushed off the criticism as Ophelia being Ophelia, particular, aesthetically driven, someone who'd spent 5 years in the fashion world and couldn't turn off that evaluative eye. Carlos would just smile and say, "You know how Ophelia is. She means well." Looking back, the signs were obvious. Small things that seemed meaningless in isolation but formed a pattern if you knew to look for it. The way Ophelia touched Carlos's shoulder when laughing at his jokes, her hand lingering just a beat too long. How she'd lean in close during conversations, invading space that should have stayed respectful. The inside jokes they developed that somehow excluded me from my own gatherings. You had to be there, Carlos would say when I'd ask what was funny. It's just a silly thing from last Tuesday, Ophelia would add. Last Tuesday when I'd been managing an event and they'd grabbed dinner together. Just being efficient, Carlos had explained. Ophelia needed to eat, I needed to eat, you were working. It made sense. It made sense. Everything made sense if I didn't look too closely. There was the time at my parents' house for Sunday dinner when I came back from the kitchen to find them sitting close on the couch, heads bent together over Carlos's phone, laughing at something. They'd straightened quickly when they noticed me. Just showing Ophelia that video of the golden retriever, Carlos said. There was the afternoon I came home early from a vendor meeting to find them in my living room, Ophelia wearing one of my casual dresses, Carlos's jacket draped over her chair. They were drinking wine, mid-conversation that stopped abruptly when I walked in. We were just talking about your bachelorette party plans, Ophelia said quickly. Wanted to surprise you. There was Carlos's phone, suddenly always face down on tables. His new habit of stepping into another room to take calls. The way he'd started working late more often, missing dinners, saying he was dealing with dealership inventory issues. And there was Ophelia, offering to help with last-minute wedding vendor confirmations, saying things like, "You're so busy with events, let me handle the photographer follow-up. Let me confirm the cake tasting. Let me coordinate with the transportation company." With Carlos's family transportation company. Which meant she was coordinating with Carlos. Constantly. That's so helpful, I said, grateful. I don't know what I'd do without you. The truth didn't reveal itself until much later. Some part of me must have known. But knowing and acknowledging are different things entirely. Acknowledging would have meant admitting my carefully organized life wasn't as controlled as I thought. That my favorite cousin and my fiancé were capable of something I couldn't even let myself imagine. So I kept planning. Kept working. Kept believing that my wedding in my venue would be perfect because I designed every detail to be perfect. I had no idea that perfection was about to shatter in front of 150 witnesses. In my own building. At my own rehearsal dinner. Where I held all the power neither of them had bothered to consider. 2 months before the wedding, my schedule became absolutely insane. Spring was peak season at Chronicle. I had back-to-back events almost every weekend, corporate functions during the week, and 3 major weddings that all required extensive custom work. There was the tech entrepreneur's wedding that required installing temporary crystal chandeliers from the iron trusses. The nonprofit gala that needed a complete transformation with draped fabric and projection mapping. The anniversary party where the client wanted the entire space to look like a 1920s speakeasy, complete with custom furniture rentals and period-appropriate decor. I was working 70, 80-hour weeks. Coming home at midnight, leaving again at 6 in the morning. Running on coffee and adrenaline and the particular kind of energy that comes from doing work you're genuinely good at. You need to slow down, my mom said when I showed up at family dinner looking exhausted. You're going to burn out before your own wedding. I'm fine, I insisted. This is just temporary. After June, things will calm down. Carlos had been understanding, as always. I know this is your busy season. Don't worry about me. Focus on your work. Ophelia had been even more helpful. "I'll handle the wedding stuff," she offered. "Seriously, Lana. You're juggling too much. Let me be your point person with vendors. I'll do the final venue walkthrough, confirm the timeline with the caterer, coordinate with the musicians." I'd been so grateful I hugged her. "You're literally saving my life right now." "That's what family is for," she said, squeezing back. What I didn't know then was that handling wedding stuff meant spending enormous amounts of time with Carlos. Alone. Under the guise of helping me. Over those months, there were dozens of lies. Weekend trips they took together while feeding me alibis. Late nights they spent in my apartment while I worked events. Each deception another brick in the wall they were building between me and the truth. In March, I had a 3-day conference in Seattle, a venue owners summit that I couldn't miss. It was prime networking, potential partnerships, workshops on emerging event technology. I'd registered 6 months earlier. "Go," Carlos said when I mentioned feeling guilty about leaving. "I'll be fine. I have that big inventory audit at the dealership anyway. Boring spreadsheet stuff." I called him every night from my hotel room. He sounded tired but fine. Said the audit was tedious. Said he missed me. Said he couldn't wait for the wedding. What he didn't say was that Ophelia had been at his condo all 3 nights. That they'd ordered takeout and drank wine and apparently crossed whatever line they'd been dancing around for months. The Seattle weekend was when it started. When friendship became something else. When they stopped pretending there wasn't something building between them. In April, I had back-to-back weekend events. A Saturday wedding followed immediately by a Sunday corporate brunch. I was at my venue from Friday afternoon through Sunday evening, barely sleeping, running on pure momentum. Ophelia said she was visiting her mom in Eugene that weekend. Sent me photos of her childhood bedroom, her mom's garden, the 2 of them at a local restaurant. Those photos were from a blog post from 2019. Stock images of someone else's life, used to construct an alibi. Carlos said he was golfing with college friends, then having a guy's weekend at someone's lake house. Sent me a photo of himself holding a beer by a dock. That photo had been taken 6 months earlier at a completely different location. They'd spent that weekend at a boutique hotel in Cannon Beach. The same beach where Carlos had proposed to me. They'd walked the same sand, stayed in a place with ocean views, probably laughed about how easy it was to fool me. In May, 3 weeks before the wedding, things escalated further. I had a destination event, a wealthy client's vow renewal in Bend that required my personal attention. They were paying premium rates specifically for me to be on site, to manage every detail. It was a 2-night commitment, Thursday through Saturday. "I'll hold down the fort," Ophelia said. She'd been staying at my place for 8 months by then, so comfortable in my space it felt like she'd always been there. Carlos kissed me goodbye Wednesday evening. "I'll miss you. Text me when you get there." I texted him from the hotel in Bend. "Made it. Client is intense but the venue is gorgeous. Miss you already. Miss you too. Kill it out there." 15 minutes after I'd left Portland, Ophelia had shown up at Carlos's condo with overnight bags. They spent the next 3 nights together, not even bothering to hide from his neighbors because I was safely 2.5 hours away, managing someone else's celebration. There were probably dozens of other times. Stolen afternoons when I was at vendor meetings. Evening hours when I thought they were separately running errands. Early mornings when I left for site visits and assumed they were both asleep in their respective spaces. They'd constructed an entire parallel relationship while I was busy building other people's perfect days. Every event I managed, every client I satisfied, every glowing review I earned, all of it gave them more time together. More opportunities to betray me. My success facilitated my own devastation. The wedding was 10 days away when Ophelia suggested she and Carlos should coordinate one final venue walkthrough together. "Just to make absolutely sure we haven't missed anything," she said. "You're so busy with that corporate event on Thursday. Let us handle the final checks, the sound system, the lighting cues, the table arrangements." We want everything perfect for you. You guys are the best, I said, meaning it. Seriously. I don't know what I'd do without you. Carlos smiled and kissed my forehead. We just want your day to be everything you've dreamed of. They spent 4 hours at my building that afternoon. My space. The venue I'd literally built from nothing. They did more than check lighting cues. 1 week before the wedding, the rehearsal dinner was locked in. Friday evening at Chronicle, of course it was at my venue. Where else would I have it? 150 guests. Both families, the wedding party, close friends. Catered by my preferred vendor. Custom cocktails named after Carlos and me. A timeline I'd perfected down to the minute. I'd designed the whole thing myself. The table arrangements, the lighting, the flow of the evening. I'd even created the seating chart, carefully placing people for optimal conversation and comfort. I'd seated Ophelia at the head table, right next to Carlos's best man. She was my maid of honor. Of course she'd be prominently placed. I'd seated myself between Carlos and my father, ready to enjoy the evening before the chaos of wedding day. I'd planned everything except for what actually happened. Because there's no seating chart that accounts for public betrayal. No timeline that includes the moment your fiancé stands up during toasts and confesses he's in love with someone else. No contingency plan for your entire future exploding in the venue you built with your own hands. But I'd learned that night that owning the space meant owning the power. And when everything shattered, I'd be the one controlling exactly how the pieces fell. The rehearsal dinner started perfectly. Golden hour light streaming through those massive industrial windows I'd fought to restore. String lights wrapped around the iron trusses casting a warm glow. Tables set with ivory linens and centerpieces of wild greenery mixed with burgundy dahlias. Everything looked exactly like the vision board I'd created 6 months ago. 150 guests mingled in the space, drinks in hand, laughter echoing off the exposed brick. My parents were beaming, despite the fact that this entire event probably cost more than their annual salaries combined. Carlos's parents held court near the bar, Patricia in designer everything, making small talk with forced politeness. I was wearing a navy silk dress I'd bought specifically for this night. Hair professionally styled. Makeup flawless. I looked like a woman who had her life completely together, who was about to marry the right man in the perfect venue, who'd built something extraordinary from abandoned ruins. I felt good. Genuinely good. The kind of satisfied exhaustion that comes from executing a vision flawlessly. Dinner service went smoothly. The catering team I'd worked with dozens of times moved like clockwork. First course, second course, entrees served simultaneously to all 150 guests with the precision I demanded from every event at my venue. I was talking to my father about his toast, giving him last-minute encouragement, when Carlos stood up with his champagne glass. Earlier than scheduled, toasts were supposed to happen after entrees, not during, but I figured he was just excited, maybe a little tipsy, wanting to say something spontaneous. Can I have everyone's attention? His voice carried across the room. Conversations stopped. Glasses clinked as people turned to look. I smiled up at him, expecting some sweet, off-script declaration about how much he loved me, how excited he was for tomorrow. I need to say something, Carlos continued, and there was something in his voice that made my smile freeze. Something wrong. Something I should have said weeks ago. Months ago. My father's hand found my arm. A warning squeeze. Being here tonight, surrounded by everyone we love, I can't, Carlos's voice cracked. I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending. The room had gone completely silent. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat, hear the ambient hum of the sound system, hear someone's shocked intake of breath. Carlos, Patricia's voice cut through from across the room. Sharp. Warning. He ignored her. His eyes found someone at the head table. Not me. Ophelia. I'm in love with Ophelia, he said. Just like that. Simple. Devastating. I've been in love with her for months. And I can't marry Lana tomorrow knowing that I'm in love with someone else. The silence shattered into chaos. Gasps, shocked exclamations, someone's chair scraping back violently. I heard my mother make a sound like she'd been physically struck. I just sat there, frozen, my brain trying to process the words. Trying to make them mean something other than what they clearly meant. Ophelia had stood up, her face pale, hands raised like she was trying to calm a wild animal. Carlos, stop. Not like this. Not like this? I found my voice. It came out steady, which surprised me. Clinical. Like I was narrating someone else's disaster. Is there a good way to do this? A better time? Maybe during the actual ceremony tomorrow? Carlos finally looked at me. His face was flushed, eyes wet. Lana, I'm sorry. I never meant. You never meant to fall in love with my cousin? I stood up slowly. Everyone was watching. All 150 guests, frozen in their seats, witnessing this in real time. You never meant to do it months before our wedding? Or you never meant to announce it at our rehearsal dinner in front of everyone we know? You're making a scene, Patricia's voice, sharp with panic. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed off the brick walls. I'm making a scene. Your son just confessed he's in love with my maid of honor in the middle of our rehearsal dinner, and I'm the one making a scene? Lana, please. Ophelia's voice was shaking. Can we talk about this privately? Oh, now you want privacy? I looked at her directly for the first time. My cousin. My favorite cousin. The person I'd let live in my guest room, eat my food, use my keys, help plan my wedding. After he just announced it to 150 people? No, I think we're past privacy, Ophelia. It just happened, she said, tears streaming down her face. We didn't plan this. We tried to fight it. How long? I cut her off. The same question from every betrayal story, because the timeline always matters. How long have you been in love with my fiancé? Carlos and Ophelia exchanged a look. A whole conversation in that glance. Some agreement about what to admit, what to hide, how much truth could be safely revealed. That look told me everything before they said a word. How long? I asked again, louder this time. 3 months, Carlos said quietly. He's lying, said a voice from the head table. Peter, Carlos's best man, stood up. His face was red, jaw clenched. I've been watching you sneak around for 6 months, Carlos. I told you repeatedly to end it or tell her. I even threatened to tell her myself last month, but you swore you were ending it after the wedding. I'm done covering for you. The room erupted again. More gasps. Someone saying, "Oh my God," loud enough to echo. 6 months? My father stood up beside me. You've been lying to my daughter for half a year? It's not that simple, Carlos started. It's exactly that simple, Peter interrupted. I've watched you lie to Lana's face. Watched you use wedding planning as an excuse to spend time with Ophelia. You're a coward, Carlos. I should have told her months ago. I looked at Peter, really looked at him. You knew? His expression was pained. I'm sorry. I told him he was destroying you. But he's my best friend and he stopped. I should have told you. That was cowardice on my part, and I'm sorry. Everyone's so sorry, I said, my voice still eerily calm. But nobody stopped it. Nobody told me. You all just watched it happen. Ophelia was fully sobbing now. Lana, you have to understand. I never meant for this to happen. We tried to stay away from each other. We tried. Where? I interrupted. Where did you try to stay away from each other? Was it in Seattle when I was at that conference? Was it at Cannon Beach when you used fake photos to pretend you were with your mom? Was it in my apartment while I was working 80-hour weeks to keep my business running? Her face confirmed each location. Every accusation landing like a physical blow. Jesus Christ, my mother whispered behind me. Or was it here? I continued, something clicking into place. That final walkthrough you insisted on doing together last week. Did you try to stay away from each other in my building? In the venue I built? Ophelia's silence was answer enough. The rage hit me then. Not hot, but cold. Surgical. Precise. You used my building. You used my space. The thing I built from nothing. You used it for your affair. Lana, Carlos reached for my arm. I stepped back like he was radioactive. Don't touch me. Don't you dare touch me. Patricia was standing now, trying to salvage something from this disaster. Everyone, please. This needs to be discussed privately, not in private. I looked at her. Your son made it public. He announced it to 150 people during dinner. We're way past private, Patricia. I turned back to Carlos. You said you couldn't keep pretending. Pretending what, exactly? That you loved me? That you wanted to marry me? That the last 3.5 years meant something? They did mean something, he said desperately. I did love you. I do love you. But with Ophelia, it's different. I finished. Stronger? More real? Let me guess, she understands you in a way I never could. She makes you feel alive? The clichés were so predictable they were almost funny. God, Lana, this is exactly why you always overreact. Carlos's voice went defensive. I'm overreacting? My voice cut through his. I caught you confessing to a months-long affair at our rehearsal dinner, and I'm overreacting? I walked away from the head table, leaving Carlos and Ophelia frozen in place. 150 pairs of eyes followed me as I crossed the floor to where my event coordinator, Marcus, stood near the sound booth looking absolutely stricken. Marcus, I said quietly, can you hand me the microphone? He gave it to me without question, his eyes wide with concern. Lana, are you? I'm fine. I wasn't fine. But I was in control. And control was what I needed right now. I walked back to the center of the room, microphone in hand. The crowd parted for me automatically. Everyone was still standing, frozen in various states of shock. My father looked ready to commit violence. My mother was crying silently. Patricia looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. I raised the microphone. My hand was steady. Years of client presentations, of managing difficult situations, of executing flawless events, all of it kicked in like muscle memory. For those who missed the announcement, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system, my fiancé just confessed he's been having an affair with my cousin and maid of honor for the past 6 months. He announced this publicly rather than having the basic decency to end our engagement privately before we got to this point. Carlos's face went from flushed to pale. Lana, don't. I'm not finished. My voice cut through his. What I think Carlos and Ophelia have both forgotten in this dramatic moment is something important. Something I'd like to remind everyone of right now. I gestured around the space. This building? Chronicle? I own it. Not my family. Not Carlos's family. Me. I bought it 3 years ago with a loan that nearly bankrupted me. I spent weekends demolishing rotted drywall. I spent nights researching building codes and historic preservation requirements. I personally oversaw every single detail of this renovation. I turned to look directly at Carlos. This isn't just the venue for our wedding. This is my business. My livelihood. My entire professional reputation. And you, I had to stop, take a breath, you used it as a location for your affair. The crowd was completely silent again. Even the catering staff had stopped moving, frozen with serving trays in hand. So here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice still steady. First, the rehearsal dinner is over. Immediately. Everyone can finish your current drinks, but there will be no toasts, no dessert service, no continuation of this event. Lana, Patricia started. Second, I spoke over her, the wedding tomorrow is cancelled. Obviously. There will be no ceremony, no reception, nothing. I'll be sending formal cancellations to everyone within the hour. My mother made a small sound of approval. My father nodded once, sharply. Third, I looked at Carlos and Ophelia. You both need to leave my building in the next 5 minutes. If you're not gone by then, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. This is insane, Carlos said, finding his voice finally. You can't just. I can absolutely just, I interrupted. This is my property. I have every legal right to revoke your access. You both have 5 minutes. But the gifts, Patricia said desperately. The arrangements. The deposits. You can't simply. Watch me. I looked at her directly. Your son just humiliated me in front of 150 people in my own building. Whatever deposits are lost, whatever arrangements need to be cancelled, that's his problem now. Not mine. I turned back to the crowd. For everyone else, I apologize that you had to witness this. I apologize that you traveled here, made arrangements, bought gifts. But I will not apologize for refusing to marry a man who's been lying to my face for half a year. Several people started clapping. Then more joined. Within seconds, half the room was applauding. Not for the wedding, for its cancellation. For me standing up for myself in real time. Carlos looked around at the applause, his expression shifting from panic to something harder. Defensive. You're being dramatic, Lana. If you'd just let us explain privately. I'm being dramatic? I lowered the microphone slightly. I'm not the one who confessed to an affair in front of 150 people. That was you, Carlos. You made this public. I'm just responding to it. Ophelia stepped forward, mascara streaking her face. Lana, please. Can we go somewhere and talk? Just the three of us? We can figure this out. Figure what out exactly? I turned to her. How to make this okay? How to salvage something from this disaster? Ophelia, you lived in my home. You slept in my guest room. You used my keys, ate my food, drank my wine. You helped plan my wedding while sleeping with my fiancé. What exactly is there to figure out? I never meant to hurt you, she whispered. But you did it anyway. 4 months. You did it anyway. I handed the microphone back to Marcus. Your 5 minutes started 3 minutes ago. You have 2 minutes left. This is ridiculous, Carlos said, his voice rising. We're not leaving. We need to discuss the logistics of canceling. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Portland Police, non-emergency line. I kept my eyes on Carlos while I waited for someone to answer. Yes, hi. I'm the owner of the Chronicle building at 847 Northwest Hoyt Street. I have 2 individuals refusing to leave my private property after I've revoked their access. I need assistance with trespassing. Jesus Christ, Lana, Carlos's voice went high with panic. I'm extremely serious, I said into the phone. Yes, I'll hold. We're going, Ophelia grabbed Carlos's arm. We're going right now. Smart choice, I said, still on hold. They walked toward the exit, Carlos's face purple with rage and humiliation, Ophelia sobbing so hard she could barely walk straight. Every single person in the room watched them go. Nobody tried to stop them. Nobody offered comfort or support. When they reached the door, Carlos turned back one more time. You'll regret this, Lana. When you calm down and realize what you've thrown away. What I've thrown away? My voice carried across the room without the microphone. Carlos, you threw us away months ago when you started sleeping with my cousin. I'm just the one with the clarity to acknowledge it. He stood there for another second, then left. Ophelia followed. The heavy door closed behind them with a satisfying thud. I hung up the phone. False alarm, I told the dispatcher. They left voluntarily. Thank you. The room was still silent. Everyone looking at me, waiting to see what I'd do next. Whether I'd collapse, break down, prove Carlos right about being dramatic. Instead, I walked back to Marcus. Can you thank the catering team for me? Tell them they'll still be paid in full for tonight, plus a 20% bonus. None of this is their fault. Marcus nodded, still looking concerned. Are you okay? No, I said honestly. But I will be. I turned to face the crowd one more time. Again, I apologize for tonight. If anyone needs help with hotel accommodations or travel changes, my assistant's contact information is on the welcome cards. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me. And thank you for understanding why I can't, my voice finally cracked, just slightly, why I can't go through with tomorrow. My father was at my side immediately. Come on, sweetie. Let's get you out of here. I need to lock up, I said. I need to make sure everything's secure. We'll help you, my mother said firmly. But then we're taking you home. Not to your apartment. To our house. You're staying with us tonight. I nodded, unable to speak anymore. As I walked through my beautiful venue, past the carefully arranged tables, past the flowers and the lights and everything I designed to be perfect, I realized something. Carlos had tried to humiliate me in my own building. But I'd turned it around. I'd used my ownership, my power, my space to take back control. And everyone had witnessed it. The guests left slowly, in clusters, people stopping to hug me or squeeze my hand or whisper support as they filed out. Some were crying. Several of my college friends looked ready to hunt Carlos down. My Aunt Rachel, Ophelia's mother, stood frozen by her table, her face pale with shock and shame. Lana, she approached me carefully, like I might shatter. I had no idea. I swear to God, I had no idea what she was doing. I know, I said. And I did know. Rachel looked genuinely devastated. This isn't your fault. She's my daughter. How did I raise someone who could? She stopped, unable to finish. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. After she left, it was mostly just family remaining. My parents, my brother Michael who'd flown in from Denver, a few cousins from my dad's side. And Peter, Carlos's best man, who sat alone at the head table looking miserable. I walked over to him. You should probably go. I know. He didn't move. I should have told you months ago. I watched Carlos sneak around for half a year. I told him repeatedly to end it or tell you. I even threatened to tell you myself last month, but he swore he was ending it after the wedding. That was cowardice on my part, and I'm sorry. Yeah, I agreed. It was. For what it's worth, I told him he was being an idiot. Told him you were the best thing that ever happened to him. Told him Ophelia was, he stopped himself. Was what? Peter met my eyes. Using him. I've met Ophelia multiple times over the past months. She'd talk about her PR business failing in Chicago, about needing connections in Portland, about how the Heathers family could open doors for her. Every conversation somehow circled back to what Carlos's family could offer her professionally. The information landed like a puzzle piece clicking into place. You think she targeted him? I think she saw an opportunity and took it. Peter stood up. I think Carlos was flattered by the attention from someone beautiful and sophisticated who made him feel exciting instead of just the guy from the car dealership. And I think Ophelia saw a way back into Portland society through your wedding, through your connections, through Carlos's family money. Jesus. I could be wrong, Peter said. Maybe they really do love each other. Maybe I'm just trying to make sense of something senseless. But I've watched her work a room, Lana. She's good at it. Really good. After he left, my father helped me secure the building while my mother and Michael packed up personal items. The catering team had cleared the food, but there were still flowers everywhere, centerpieces on every table, the string lights still glowing warm against the iron trusses. "What do you want to do with all this?" my father asked, gesturing at the decorations. "Leave it," I said. "I'll deal with it tomorrow." Lana. "Dad, I can't. I can't make decisions about flowers and centerpieces right now. I just need to go home, to your home, and sleep." He nodded, understanding. We were almost at the door when my phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in. From my assistant Claire, "Oh my God, are you okay? I'm seeing posts on Instagram. What happened?" From my college roommate, "Someone just sent me a video from tonight." Lana. "Call me." From a venue industry colleague, "Is it true about the rehearsal dinner? Everyone's talking about it." I opened Instagram against my better judgment. There were already 3 videos posted from tonight. One from a guest's account, shaky footage of Carlos standing with his champagne glass saying, "I'm in love with Ophelia." Another from a different angle showing my face when he said it. I looked eerily calm, which somehow made it worse. A third video, the one that was already going viral, showed me with the microphone saying, "This is my business, my livelihood, my entire professional reputation," and then giving them 5 minutes to leave. The comments were supportive. Overwhelmingly supportive. "She handled that with so much grace, holy shit. Imagine being dumb enough to cheat on a woman who owns the venue. The way she took control of that situation. Iconic. He really confessed at the rehearsal dinner in her building? The audacity. I would have thrown something. She's stronger than me." One video had 50,000 views already. By morning, the main video would hit 200,000. Eventually, it would top 2 million views across various platforms. My private devastation was becoming public entertainment. "Don't read those," my mother said gently, seeing my face. "It's too late. Everyone's already seen it." Michael took my phone from my hand. "Social media can wait. Right now, you need to get out of this building and decompress." The drive to my parents' house in Laurelhurst was quiet. I sat in the back seat of their car like I was a teenager again, watching Portland pass by through the window. Friday night traffic, people heading to bars and restaurants, living their normal lives while mine had just detonated spectacularly. My childhood bedroom looked exactly the same. Pale blue walls, debate team trophies on the shelf, my architecture degree framed above the desk. Evidence of a life I'd built methodically, step by step, with clear goals and careful planning. "Do you want to talk about it?" my mother asked from the doorway. "Not yet," I said. "Maybe tomorrow. Right now I just want to not exist for a while." She understood. My mother had always been good at reading what I needed. She brought me water and ibuprofen, left pajamas on the bed, told me she'd be right downstairs if I needed anything. After she left, I just stood in my old room, looking at the evidence of who I used to be. The girl who thought if you worked hard enough, planned carefully enough, controlled enough variables, you could prevent disaster. That girl had been naive. That girl hadn't understood that some fractures come from inside the structure, not from external forces you can anticipate and defend against. My phone, still in Michael's possession, buzzed constantly downstairs. I could hear it even from my room. More texts, more calls, more people learning what happened and reaching out with concern or curiosity or that particular kind of excitement people get from other people's drama. Around midnight, there was a soft knock on my door. "Lana? You still awake?" "Yeah," I called. My brother came in, holding my phone. I screened everything. Nothing urgent. "But you should know, Carlos called 8 times. Ophelia called 12 times. I blocked both numbers. Thank you. Also, he sat on the edge of my bed, that video of you kicking them out? It's on TikTok now. Multiple versions. The main one has 340,000 views and climbing." I closed my eyes. Great. Perfect. My humiliation is viral. That's not what people are saying though. Michael pulled up his own phone, showed me the comments. Look at this. People think you're a badass. They're literally making you into a meme. Don't mess with a woman who owns the venue is trending. I looked at the screen. He was right. The narrative wasn't, poor Lana got cheated on. It was, Lana owned that situation. People were praising how I'd handled it, how I'd used my ownership as power, how I'd maintained composure while ending everything on my terms. It still hurts, I said quietly. Even if the internet thinks I'm iconic or whatever. It still hurts that he chose her. That they both lied to me for months. That I didn't see it. Of course it hurts. Michael put his phone away. You loved him. You trusted both of them. That's not weakness, that's what normal humans do. They're the ones who are broken, not you. Peter said he thinks Ophelia was using Carlos for his family connections. Wouldn't surprise me. She always struck me as calculating. Remember at Christmas when she spent 40 minutes talking to Uncle Richard about his venture capital firm? That wasn't casual conversation. She was networking. I hadn't thought about it at the time, but now it seemed obvious. Ophelia had been building relationships through my family, through my connections, through my wedding. Using my life as a stepping stone back into Portland's professional scene. And Carlos, who'd grown up with family money and never had to question anyone's motives, probably never saw it coming. What do I do tomorrow? I asked. The wedding was supposed to be at 2. Everyone's going to be. Everyone's going to understand, Michael interrupted. And anyone who doesn't understand isn't someone whose opinion matters. You handled tonight perfectly. You'll handle tomorrow the same way. After he left, I lay in my childhood bed, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling that I'd put up in 9th grade. They were still there, faint now, barely visible. Outside, I could hear Portland's Friday night sounds. Cars passing, distant music, someone laughing. My phone buzzed again downstairs. More people learning, more reactions, more public exposure of the worst moment of my life. I'd wanted a perfect wedding. A beautiful ceremony in my beautiful venue. Proof that I'd built something extraordinary both professionally and personally. Instead, I got viral videos and a cancelled future and 150 witnesses to my humiliation. But I also got something else. I got my power back. I got to walk away on my terms. I got to use my ownership, my space, my control to end things the way they needed to end. And maybe that was worth something too. I didn't sleep. I lay in my childhood bed watching the ceiling, my brain cycling through the same moments on repeat. Carlos standing up with his champagne glass. The way Ophelia's face went pale. The silence before the chaos. Half a year of lies while I worked myself to exhaustion building other people's perfect days. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely. I went downstairs to find my father sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and his laptop. Couldn't sleep either, he asked. Not even close. I poured myself coffee and sat across from him. What are you doing? Making a list. He turned the laptop so I could see. A spreadsheet with vendor names, contact information, payment statuses. Your mother and I are handling the cancellations today. You're not dealing with any of it. Dad, you don't have to. Yes, we do. His voice was firm. You built your business by being meticulous and professional. The last thing you need right now is to burn bridges with vendors because you're too devastated to handle notifications properly. Your mother and I will contact everyone, explain the situation professionally, handle the logistics. I looked at the list. Florist, caterer, photographer, musicians, officiant, transportation, Carlos's family company, I realized with a bitter laugh. Carlos's company was doing the transportation. Then that one will be particularly satisfying to cancel. My father added a note next to that line. I'll handle that one personally. My mother came downstairs around 4:30, found us both at the kitchen table surrounded by coffee cups and vendor contracts. She didn't say anything, just started making pancakes. Comfort food from childhood, the thing she'd made every time I was sick or sad or stressed. "I need to go to my venue today," I said while we ate. "I need to pack up all the wedding decorations. Clear everything out." "We'll come with you," my mother said. Not a question. "And me," Michael added, emerging from the guest room looking exhausted. "You're not doing this alone." We arrived at Chronicle at 7 in the morning. The space looked surreal in early daylight. All the decorations still in place, centerpieces wilting slightly, string lights that had seemed romantic last night now just looking sad. Evidence of a celebration that never finished, a future that evaporated mid-toast. "Where do we start?" Michael asked. "The gifts," I said. "Everything in the gift room needs to be inventoried and returned." We designated one of the smaller spaces for gifts. It was full of wrapped boxes, envelopes, gift bags with expensive tissue paper. Hundreds of items from people who'd traveled here, who'd thought they were celebrating a wedding. My mother started making a list while Michael and I carried boxes to my car. It took 2 hours to load everything. Kitchen supplies, bedding, art pieces, checks in elegant envelopes. Tangible evidence of other people's investment in a future that Carlos had demolished with one confession. "What do you want to do with all this?" my mother asked. "Return everything with personal notes," I said. Thanking them for their support and apologizing for the circumstances. That's over 100 notes. I know. But it's the right thing to do. While we worked, my phone started buzzing again. I'd turned it back on to coordinate with my parents, and immediately regretted it. Texts, calls, Instagram notifications, emails, an avalanche of communication. Claire, my assistant, was the first call I answered. "Oh my God, Lana. I saw the videos. Are you okay?" "I'm managing. Listen, I need your help today." "Anything." "I need you to draft a professional statement for our social media and website. Something that acknowledges the cancellation, thanks people for their support, and makes it clear the venue is still operating normally for all other booked events." "On it." "What tone?" "Professional but not cold. Honest but not melodramatic. I'm still running my business. This personal crisis doesn't change that." "Got it. I'll send you a draft in an hour." After we finished with the gifts, we started taking down decorations. String lights, centerpieces, table runners, the custom signage I'd designed with our names and wedding date. Each item felt like dismantling a future piece by piece. "Do you want to keep any of this?" my mother asked, holding up a centerpiece. "God, no. Donate everything. The flowers to a nursing home, the decorations to theater departments, whatever. I don't want any of it in my life." My brother was loading the last box of candles into his truck when a car pulled into the parking lot. A silver Mercedes. My stomach dropped even before I recognized it. Patricia Heathers got out, wearing designer sunglasses and an expression of grim determination. "You've got to be kidding me," Michael muttered. "Go inside," I told my family. "I'll handle this." "Lana," my father started. "Please. I need to do this myself." They went, reluctantly, but I saw my father position himself just inside the door. Close enough to intervene if needed. Patricia approached carefully, like she was approaching a wild animal. "Lana. I'm glad I caught you. What do you want, Patricia?" She flinched at my tone. "Good. I came to apologize. And to explain." "Explain what?" "That your son carried on an affair with my cousin for months? That he announced it publicly at our rehearsal dinner? I think those facts are pretty self-explanatory. Carlos is devastated. He didn't mean for it to happen this way." I laughed, sharp and bitter. How did he mean for it to happen? Was there a good way to betray me? He should have ended things privately. Before last night. Patricia removed her sunglasses. She looked tired, older than I'd ever seen her. "I'm not defending what he did. But I think you should know, this is a pattern with Carlos. He's done this before. The words hung in the air between us. What do you mean, before? Patricia took a breath. He was engaged before you. To a woman named Belinda Park. They'd been together for 2 years, engaged for 8 months. 3 weeks before their wedding, he called it off. Said he'd developed feelings for someone else he'd met through wedding planning. The information crashed over me in waves. You knew he had a pattern of sabotaging relationships and you didn't warn me? I thought you were different. I thought a woman with a serious career, someone who wouldn't worship him or make him the center of her universe, would hold his attention in a way Belinda hadn't. Her voice broke slightly. I was wrong. And I owe you an apology. I should have warned you. Should have told you about his history. Why are you telling me this now? Patricia was quiet for a moment. Because you deserved better than my son. You deserved honesty and loyalty and someone who appreciated what an extraordinary person you are. And because, she paused, because I want you to know that the Heathers family will honor every financial commitment we made to this wedding. Every deposit, every vendor payment, every expense. You won't lose money because of Carlos's choices. She pulled an envelope from her purse. This is a check for $75,000. It covers all wedding expenses, approximately $50,000, plus additional damages for reputational harm to your business. I stared at the envelope. You think you can pay me to go away quietly? I think you earned that money and more for what you endured last night. What you do with it is entirely your choice. Accept it, donate it, burn it. But it's yours regardless. She set the envelope on the hood of my car and walked back to her Mercedes. Before getting in, she turned back. For what it's worth, I always thought Carlos was lucky to have you. I was wrong about you when we first met. You built something real from nothing. My son only knows how to inherit and squander. He'll regret this for the rest of his life. After she drove away, I stood there looking at the envelope. $75,000. Hush money or genuine restitution? Did it matter? My father emerged from the building. What did she want? I handed him the envelope. He opened it, saw the check, whistled low. Well. That's something. Is it blood money or an apology? Does it have to be one or the other? He handed it back. Sometimes money is just money. And if she's offering to cover your losses, maybe that's the best you're going to get from that family. I looked at the check. $75,000 could cover the wedding expenses, sure. Or it could go toward opening that second location I'd been planning. Transform catastrophe into opportunity. I'm keeping it, I decided. And I'm using it to expand my business. Build something bigger and better. My father smiled. That's my girl. We finished clearing the venue by noon. Every trace of the wedding removed, every surface cleaned, every space returned to its blank canvas state. Ready for the next event, the next couple, the next celebration. As I locked the doors, I realized something. This building had witnessed my humiliation, yes. But it had also witnessed my power. My control. My ability to end things on my terms. Chronicle wasn't tainted by what happened. If anything, it was mine more completely than ever before. I went back to work on Monday. Not because I felt ready, but because sitting in my childhood bedroom scrolling through viral videos of my own devastation felt worse than facing the world. Claire had handled the social media statement perfectly. Professional, brief, gracious. Due to personal circumstances, the Winslet Heathers wedding scheduled for June 14th has been cancelled. The Chronicle building remains fully operational and committed to creating extraordinary events for all our clients. We appreciate everyone's understanding during this private matter. The comments were overwhelmingly supportive. Clients reaching out to confirm their upcoming events were unaffected. Other venue owners sending solidarity. Even strangers offering encouragement. But there were also the calls I'd been avoiding. Carlos had tried to reach me 43 times over the weekend. Ophelia had sent 17 text messages that ranged from sobbing apologies to defensive justifications to angry accusations that I'd ruined everything. I blocked both numbers permanently Monday morning. My first meeting of the day was with a bride whose wedding was scheduled for the following weekend. I expected awkwardness, maybe pity, possibly even concerns about whether I could handle her event professionally. Instead, she hugged me. I saw what happened. I'm so sorry. But also, the way you handled that situation? You're exactly who I want managing my wedding. Someone who doesn't fall apart under pressure. It was the first moment I felt something other than numb devastation. Pride, maybe. Or just relief that my professional reputation was intact. Tuesday, Claire knocked on my office door looking concerned. Lana? There's someone here to see you. She says she's a friend of Ophelia's from Chicago. I don't want to. She says she has information you need to hear. About Ophelia's history. The woman waiting in my lobby was early 30s, expensively dressed, with the careful posture of someone used to high-stakes professional environments. She introduced herself as Greta Morrison. I flew in this morning, she said. I saw the videos from your rehearsal dinner. I needed to talk to you in person. About what? About Ophelia's pattern. Greta pulled out her phone, showing me photos. This is my ex-fiancé, Joseph. We were supposed to get married 2 years ago in Chicago. Ophelia was my wedding coordinator. She freelanced for the PR firm I worked with. The photos showed a handsome man, mid-30s, at various events with Ophelia. The body language was unmistakable. These weren't professional photos. She seduced him? I asked. She targeted him. Joseph's family owned a chain of boutique hotels. Ophelia had just lost a major client and was desperate for connections in the hospitality industry. She assessed the situation, identified vulnerability. Joseph was stressed about family business pressure, and exploited it. My stomach turned. How long? For months before I caught them. She'd convinced him I was too focused on my career, that I didn't understand him, that they had a special connection. Greta's voice was bitter. All the same lines, I'm guessing? All the same lines, I confirmed. After I ended things with Joseph, Ophelia moved on immediately. Started dating his business partner within weeks. That relationship ended badly too. He figured out she was only interested in what his connections could do for her consulting business. Why are you telling me this? Greta met my eyes directly. Because I saw your video. I saw you take your power back in real time. And I wanted you to know that what happened wasn't about you being insufficient or missing something obvious. Ophelia is a professional. She's done this before. She'll do it again. After Greta left, I sat in my office processing. This wasn't about Carlos finding true love with someone who understood him better. This was about Ophelia systematically targeting men with money and connections, using romantic relationships as networking opportunities. I'd been collateral damage in her career strategy. Wednesday afternoon, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, information about Carlos Heather's previous relationship. I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open it. The email was from someone named Belinda Park, the woman Patricia had mentioned. She wrote, I don't know if you remember me, we met briefly at a charity gala 2 years ago. I'm the woman Carlos was engaged to before you. I saw what happened at your rehearsal dinner. I'm so sorry. I wanted you to know that you weren't the first. She attached documentation. Photos, text messages, a timeline. Carlos had been engaged to Belinda for 8 months before calling it off 3 weeks before their wedding. The reason? He'd developed feelings for someone else. A woman he'd met through wedding planning who understood him better. The pattern was obvious. Carlos had a history of sabotaging relationships at the moment of ultimate commitment. Getting engaged, planning a wedding, then finding someone new right before he had to actually follow through. He told me I was too focused on my career, Belinda wrote. That I didn't make him feel special enough. That the other woman made him feel alive in a way I never could. All the same excuses, I'm guessing. All the same excuses. I called Belinda. We talked for an hour. She'd been a corporate attorney, working 70-hour weeks, planning a wedding while managing major cases. Sound familiar, she said with a sad laugh. His mother paid me $50,000 to sign an NDA, Belinda told me. To never discuss what happened publicly. I took it because I was young and humiliated and wanted to move on. But after I saw your video, I thought you deserved to know the truth. That this is who Carlos is. Patricia told me Carlos struggles with commitment. That he fears becoming like his father. That's the excuse his therapist gave, apparently. Carlos went to 3 sessions after our breakup, then quit because the therapist didn't understand his situation. He doesn't want to change. He wants to be validated for his choices. After we hung up, I sat with the information. 2 patterns converging. Ophelia targeting wealthy men through their relationships. Carlos sabotaging commitments right before weddings. They'd found each other at the exact moment when both their patterns aligned. I wasn't the problem. I'd never been the problem. Thursday morning, Claire came into my office with coffee and a concerned expression. Lana, you need to see something. She pulled up Instagram on her phone. Ophelia had posted. The caption was lengthy, written in that performative vulnerability style, learning to forgive myself for following my heart, even when the timing was complicated. Not everyone can handle a woman who knows her truth and isn't afraid to live authentically. To those sending hate, you don't know the full story. Love isn't always convenient or expected. It just is. Moving forward with grace and healing. The comments were brutal. Girl, you slept with your cousin's fiancé for months. Maybe sit this one out. Following my heart is an interesting way to say, having an affair. The full story is that you're a narcissist who got called out publicly and now you're trying to rewrite history. Lana owned you in 60 seconds with a microphone. Take the L and move on. Her follower count, which had been around 28,000 when she moved back to Portland, had dropped to 12,000 by the end of June. By July, she was down to 6,000. Brand partnerships she'd been building had disappeared from her feed. Her attempt at image rehabilitation was failing spectacularly. She's trying to control the narrative, Claire observed. Make herself the victim of judgment instead of the perpetrator of betrayal. Let her try, I said. The internet has already decided. Friday, I got a call from Detective Morrison with Portland Police. He was calling about a complaint Carlos had filed, claiming I'd unlawfully removed him from a private event and caused emotional distress through public humiliation. He was seeking damages for reputational harm. I actually laughed. Detective, I'm the owner of Chronicle. Carlos was a guest at an event held on my private property. After he publicly confessed to an affair during that event, I revoked his access and asked him to leave. That's not unlawful removal. That's property rights. That's what I thought, Detective Morrison said, amusement in his voice. I'm calling as a courtesy to let you know about the complaint, but between you and me? He doesn't have a case. You had every right to remove someone from your property, especially after what he did. The complaint will be dismissed. Thank you for letting me know. For what it's worth, he added, my wife saw those videos. She said you handled it better than she would have. Said she would have thrown the champagne bottle. After he hung up, I sat back in my chair, processing. Carlos was trying to reframe his own public confession as somehow being my fault. Trying to make himself the victim of my response rather than the architect of his own humiliation. It wouldn't work. Too many witnesses. Too much video evidence. Too clear a timeline of who did what to whom. But the fact that he tried told me everything I needed to know about whether he'd actually learned anything or felt genuine remorse. He hadn't. He didn't. He was just angry that consequences had finally caught up to his choices. And I was done giving him any space in my head. The consequences started falling like dominoes over the next 2 weeks. First was Carlos. Peter called me, we'd exchanged numbers after the rehearsal dinner, a strange alliance born from shared guilt and his desire to make amends. Carlos got demoted, Peter said. His father removed him from the VP position at the dealership. He's back to being a sales associate. Hourly wages, commission-based. No company car, no corporate card, no corner office. His father actually did that? Apparently the police complaint was the final straw. Mr. Heathers told Carlos that if he was stupid enough to try to sue you after publicly confessing to an affair, he was too stupid to represent the family business in a leadership capacity. Peter's voice carried satisfaction. Carlos is furious. Keeps saying everyone's overreacting, that people make mistakes, that he's being punished for being honest about his feelings. Honest would have been ending our engagement privately before sleeping with my cousin for months. That's what his father said. Almost verbatim. 2 days later, I got an email from a business reporter at Portland Monthly. They were doing a feature on women entrepreneurs who've overcome adversity and wanted to interview me. Not about the cancelled wedding specifically, but about building Chronicle from abandoned ruins into Portland's premier venue. Your resilience in the face of recent personal challenges exemplifies the kind of determination we want to highlight, the reporter wrote. I agreed to the interview. Why not? I'd built something extraordinary. The fact that my personal life had imploded didn't diminish my professional achievements. The article came out 3 weeks after the rehearsal dinner. The headline, Lana Winslet built Portland's most sought-after venue from scratch, and nothing can tear it down. The piece focused on the renovation, the business strategy, my vision for expansion. The cancelled wedding was mentioned in one paragraph. Recent personal challenges have tested Winslet's resolve, but she remains focused on what she's built. Chronicle is my legacy, she says. No personal setback changes that. The article generated more business inquiries than any advertising campaign I'd ever run. Apparently, people wanted to book events with the woman who'd gone viral for taking control of her own narrative. Ophelia's consequences were more public and more immediate. Her Instagram following continued to drop, down to 7,000 followers by the end of June, then to 4,500 by August. The brand partnerships she'd been cultivating disappeared entirely. Her attempt to launch a lifestyle and wellness consulting business in Portland died before it even launched. Then Claire showed me something else. Lana, you need to see this. It was a LinkedIn post from Lawrence Chen, owner of a boutique PR firm in Portland, one of the companies Ophelia had been courting for consulting work. A reminder to thoroughly vet potential contractors, he'd written. Recently encountered a consultant who misrepresented her Chicago credentials and professional reputation. Due diligence revealed a pattern of using personal relationships to gain professional access, then burning bridges when called out. Portland's business community is smaller than people think. Reputation matters. He didn't name Ophelia directly. He didn't have to. Anyone who'd followed the rehearsal dinner drama knew exactly who he was talking about. She's basically been blacklisted, Claire observed. No one in Portland's going to hire her now. Good, I said, and meant it. 3 weeks after the rehearsal dinner, my Aunt Rachel called. Ophelia's mother, the woman who'd looked devastated at the rehearsal dinner, apologizing for her daughter's choices. Lana, I need to tell you something. Rachel's voice was strained. Ophelia moved out. She's going back to Chicago. Okay. She asked me for money. A lot of money. Said she needed help getting re-established since Portland turned against her after you humiliated her publicly. Rachel's voice went sharp. Those were her exact words. What did you say? I said no. I told her that she humiliated herself through her own choices, that you simply responded to a situation she created. We had a terrible fight. She said I was choosing you over her, that I was a terrible mother for not supporting her. Rachel, I'm sorry. Don't be. I needed to hear it. Needed to understand who my daughter has become. She was quiet for a moment. She's always been calculating, but I convinced myself it was just ambition, just strategic thinking. I didn't want to see that she was using people. Greta Morrison told me about Chicago. About Joseph and the hotel family. I didn't know about that until after your rehearsal dinner. I called some of Ophelia's old friends, asked questions I should have asked years ago. There's a pattern, Lana. This isn't the first time. Probably won't be the last. After we hung up, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction at Ophelia's exile, but sadness. Sadness that someone I'd loved as family had turned out to be someone I'd never really known at all. The last major consequence came from an unexpected source. Patricia Heathers called in mid-July. Lana, I wanted you to hear this from me directly. Carlos and Ophelia broke up. I was silent, processing. It lasted 3 weeks after your rehearsal dinner, Patricia continued. Once they didn't have you to blame for their relationship being complicated, once they actually had to build something real instead of an affair, it fell apart immediately. What happened? Ophelia apparently expected Carlos to help finance her consulting business, introduce her to his family's connections, essentially bankroll her career restart. When Carlos, who's now making a fraction of his previous salary, couldn't deliver, she lost interest. Called him disappointing and not who she thought he was. The irony was almost funny. Ophelia had blown up my relationship to be with Carlos, only to discover that Carlos without family money and influence wasn't worth the social destruction she'd caused. Carlos is devastated, Patricia said. Keeps saying he gave up everything for her and she didn't really love him. He still doesn't understand that he gave up everything for an illusion. I don't feel sorry for him, I said honestly. Neither do I, Patricia replied. I love my son, but he's a fool. He had something real with you and he destroyed it for something that was never real at all. That's a lesson he'll have to live with. After she hung up, I sat with the information. Carlos and Ophelia had imploded exactly as everyone predicted. The affair that seemed so urgent and passionate and worth destroying everything for had lasted less than a month in the real world. They'd obliterated my future for something that wasn't even real. But here's what I'd learned: their choices had nothing to do with my value. Carlos's inability to commit wasn't because I was too focused on my career. Ophelia's betrayal wasn't because I was a bad cousin. Their patterns existed long before I entered their lives and would continue long after I left. I'd just been collateral damage in their respective dysfunctions. And I refused to be collateral damage anymore. That night, I drafted an email to a commercial real estate agent I'd been talking to about expansion. I'm ready to look at properties for my second location. Let's set up viewings for next week. Patricia's check for $75,000 would be the seed money. The catastrophe of my cancelled wedding would fund my business expansion. I was transforming their betrayal into my opportunity. And that felt like the best revenge of all. The next morning, Claire came into my office with coffee and a tablet. You're not going to believe this. She pulled up a news article. The headline: Heathers and Associates under investigation for financial irregularities. I read quickly. The Portland Business Journal was reporting that the dealership was facing scrutiny over corporate expense accounts. Apparently, someone had flagged suspicious charges, personal expenses coded as business costs, luxury hotel stays with no clear business purpose, restaurant bills that didn't correspond to any documented client meetings. Look at the dates, Claire pointed. They match exactly with the timeline of Carlos's affair. Every hotel, every dinner, every weekend trip, all charged to corporate accounts. The investigation was ongoing, but preliminary findings suggested approximately $40,000 in misappropriated funds over 6 months. His father is going to kill him, I said. His father is probably the one who reported it, Claire replied. This looks like a deliberate audit designed to document exactly what Carlos was doing. She was right. This wasn't random discovery. This was Mr. Heathers methodically building a case against his own son. The consequences were still falling. Still compounding. Still proving that choices have weight and betrayal has cost. And I was finally ready to stop watching and start building something new. August came with heat and clarity. I started seeing Dr. Hannah Roth, a therapist specializing in relational trauma and betrayal. Not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand why I'd missed so many warning signs, why I'd dismissed my own instincts in favor of maintaining the illusion of control. "So talk to me about control," Dr. Roth said in our first session. "You've built a business around creating perfect events. Does that extend to your personal life?" I was quiet for a long moment. I thought if I planned everything carefully enough, if I controlled all the variables, I could prevent disaster. How did that work out? The question landed without judgment, but it still hurt. Obviously, it didn't. Over the following weeks, Dr. Roth asked questions that cut through my carefully constructed narratives. When did asking for help start feeling like failure to you? Why did you equate Carlos's acceptance of your career with actual compatibility? Can you identify the moment you decided to ignore your gut instinct about Ophelia? The answers were uncomfortable. I'd been so focused on building my venue, on proving I could create something extraordinary, that I'd treated my relationship like another project to manage. Another variable to control. Another thing that would work if I just planned it carefully enough. "You're not responsible for other people's patterns," Dr. Roth said gently. "Carlos was always going to sabotage that relationship because that's his pattern. Ophelia was always going to use people because that's hers. You couldn't have changed those outcomes. But I missed the signs. Or you saw the signs and dismissed them because acknowledging them meant admitting something you'd built wasn't working. That's different than being blind. That's being human." In September, I found a property for my second location. An old textile factory in southeast Portland, similar bones to the original building but bigger. More potential. More risk. "Are you sure about this?" my father asked when I showed him the property. "It's a huge investment right after everything that happened." "I'm sure," I said. "I built one venue from nothing. I can build another. And this time, I know exactly what I'm doing." I used Patricia's $75,000 as the down payment. Started the renovation process with the same meticulous attention to detail that had made Chronicle successful. But this time, I hired more help. Delegated more tasks. Admitted when I needed support instead of trying to do everything myself. Dr. Roth called it growth. I called it survival. "You're learning to trust people again," she observed in a session. "Hiring contractors, delegating to Claire, accepting help from your parents. That's significant progress." "I'm learning to trust people while also maintaining boundaries," I corrected. "There's a difference." "There is. And that's healthy." In October, I had coffee with Belinda Park, Carlos's ex-fiancé who'd reached out after the rehearsal dinner. She'd flown to Portland for a legal conference and wanted to meet in person. "You look good," she said when we sat down. "Better than I expected." "Did you expect me to be destroyed?" "I expected you to be where I was a year after my wedding got cancelled. Angry, bitter, unable to trust anyone." She smiled slightly. "You seem different. Stronger." I had a public breakdown in front of 150 people that went viral on TikTok. I didn't have the luxury of hiding and processing privately. I had to figure out how to keep running my business while my personal life was public entertainment. That probably helped, actually. Forced you to keep moving. We talked for 2 hours. About Carlos's patterns, about how we'd both ignored warning signs, about the specific kind of pain that comes from being left right before a wedding. But also about what came after. How we'd both rebuilt. How betrayal had forced us to examine patterns in ourselves, not just in him. "I'm engaged again," Belinda said. "To someone completely different. Someone who's done his own therapy, who knows how to communicate, who doesn't see commitment as a trap." "How do you trust again after what happened?" "Carefully. With open eyes. With attention to evidence instead of just hoping someone is who they claim to be." She paused. "And I'm in therapy myself. Working on my own stuff. Making sure I'm not repeating patterns either." After she left, I thought about that. About patterns. About the ways we unconsciously recreate dynamics even when we're trying to avoid them. I'd chosen Carlos partly because he seemed so accepting of my career. But accepting isn't the same as engaging. He tolerated my work, but he never really saw it. Never asked deep questions about the creative process, never understood why transforming spaces mattered to me beyond the financial success. He'd been comfortable with my absence because it gave him freedom to pursue his own interests. Including, eventually, my cousin. In November, I went on my first date since the rehearsal dinner. His name was Daniel, a landscape architect who'd reached out about collaborating on the new venue's outdoor spaces. We met for coffee to discuss the project and ended up talking for 3 hours about creative vision, the intersection of natural and industrial aesthetics, the challenge of transforming abandoned spaces into something beautiful. "Can I take you to dinner?" he asked as we were leaving. Not as a business meeting. As a date. I hesitated. I need to be honest. I went through a very public breakup in June. It's probably all over Google if you search my name. "I know," he said. "I saw the videos. And I thought, there's a woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to defend it. That's attractive." We went to dinner the following weekend. Then another dinner. Then a weekend trip to the coast where we talked about past relationships and patterns and what we were both looking for. "I'm not ready for anything serious," I told him honestly. "I'm still processing what happened. Still learning to trust my own judgment again." "That's fair," Daniel said. "I'm not in a rush. Let's just see what develops naturally without forcing a timeline." It was the healthiest relationship conversation I'd ever had. No pressure, no expectations, no trying to fit into some predetermined vision of what a relationship should look like. Just two people being honest about where they were and what they could offer. Dr. Roth called it progress. You're not trying to control the outcome. You're allowing space for things to develop organically. That's huge growth. In December, 6 months after the rehearsal dinner, Chronicle hosted a holiday gala for 300 guests. Everything went perfectly. Flawless execution, stunning design, guests who raved about the experience. I stood in the space I'd built, watching people celebrate, and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. Not in spite of what happened in June, but because of it. I'd survived public humiliation and turned it into business growth. I'd faced betrayal and used it as motivation for self-examination. I'd had my future demolished and built something better from the ruins. Claire found me by the bar. The client just said this is the best event she's ever attended. She's already asking about booking next year. "Good," I said. "Let's make it happen." After the event ended, after the last guest left and the catering team cleaned up, I sat alone in the empty venue. The space looked beautiful in the quiet, string lights still glowing, the industrial architecture dramatic in shadows. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "How'd the event go?" "Perfectly," I replied. "Proud of you. Coffee tomorrow?" "Yes." I sat there a little longer, thinking about the past 6 months. The devastation and the rebuilding. The public exposure and the private growth. The betrayal and the unexpected opportunities it created. Carlos had tried to destroy me in my own building. Instead, he'd given me the motivation to expand it. To grow beyond what I'd originally imagined. To build something even bigger and better than before. Ophelia had tried to use my connections for her own advancement. Instead, she'd burned every bridge and exiled herself from the city. They'd both gotten exactly what they deserved. And I'd gotten something better than revenge. I'd gotten clarity. Growth. Understanding of my own worth beyond any relationship. I'd gotten my power back. Not through vengeance, but through building. Not through destruction, but through creation. And that was worth more than any wedding could have ever been. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.